Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, folks. How are you doing? I hope you are doing well, and we have a special program today with you on Harlem World Radio. And, of course, I'm Danny Tisdale, and this is the Danny Tisdale Show you're listening to. And we have a special series this week with the Harlem Writers Guild, and each day we will have members from the Guild to read from their books, the authors from the Guild, authors and members. We thought we would share this with you, this experience with you on our podcast. And today we have Judy Andrews and Eartha Watts-Hicks to read. And how are you both doing? Hello, Judy. Hello, Eartha.
Oh, I'm fine.
Hi, Danny.
Fine. Hello there, Eartha. How are you?
I'm good, Judy. How are you? And thank you, Danny. Thank you for inviting us. This is a pleasure.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you, Eartha, for inviting me. Thank you.
And thank you for being on the show. And, we are encouraging the support for the arts, whether it's the visual arts or the written arts, and the Harlem Writers Guild has done incredible work, and we thought that this would, be a great opportunity for all of us, both listeners, both as Harlem World Magazine and for the Writers Guild. And Judy is starting off first, and Judy Andrews, it's all yours.
Yes. Well, hello, everyone. It's nice to be on this wonderful show during this difficult time. I love to write. I'm a member of the Harlem Writers Guild, of course, and during this difficult time, I wrote a couple of poems. Well, I've written a poetry collection about humankind and the good things that humans are responsible for. I love to write suspense and murder mysteries. The first two books that I wrote, An Ocean of Jewels and A Gift to Treasure, are suspense novels. The third book that I'm working on is a poetry collection. I decided to take a break from suspense and do a little poetry before I move on to the next murder mystery. So I'm going to be reading from my upcoming book that I plan to publish in the fall or summer of this year, probably in the fall. It's the editor right now. It's called The Gathering of Gemstones, and it's a poetry collection. Mary McLeod Bethune, who was a great activist, once said that, everyone is a diamond in the rough, and that's the type of poetry that I'm doing to resemble that. I add a little bit of Shakespearean sonnets, a few cinquains, some freestyle, and as well as a little bit of format poetry. But what I'm going to do today is a little freestyle or free poetry. So I'll start with the first poem. I don't know if we'll have time for all three, but I have one. I'll read the first one. This was inspired by the Central Park Five and brothers are going through in America. So this is the title of it is called I Got You, Brother, and it's for Corey, Yusef, Kevin, Antron, and Raymond. I have tasted your discomfort in this weary land, especially when Central Park came abroad. I have tasted your discomfort in this weary land, especially when Central Park in NYC treated you like an animal. I have seen you hustle, break down walls of pain that the oval globe taught you are invisible. I am from you. You are from Horus, Adam, Aton, Sun, Imhotep, Tenkamemen, Sundiata, Nat, Frederick, Marcus, Nelson, Martin, Malcolm, Barack, Trayvon, and even Tyrone. I have smelled your impatience in rooms made of crystal, inhaling the smell of oakwood trees, honeysuckle, patchouli, gingerly waiting. I have seen your destruction firsthand by your own. Others too, and insecure at the displeasure of your success, thwarted by jealousy, the insecurity of global masses, so frightened of your exquisite intelligence, sensuality, charm, compassion, sexuality, brazen with animalistic vibes of colorism, classism, racism, plotism, brutality to destroy your magnificent treasures you have for the world. I have felt your touch against my umber breast as my bosom rose and fell against your body. Sweetness and care and the look you gave, tenderness and fine caresses for all folk, deserved or not, light strokes of your lips against my stomach in darkness, shades of grayness. You hold me together. I have heard the laughter coupled with words so despicable, hateful, stressful of your skin tone, color, that I learned from the womb to hold you in my thoughts, prayers, arms, close to let you know, brother, I got you. That was the first one.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know, should I continue with the second one or?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. The second one is called African Prism, and it is a form of several haikus, and I wanted to write something inspiring. This was I wrote this before the pandemic, but I wanted to write something inspiring. So this is called African Prism. You are connected, and it's in haiku. You are connected to a wealthy continent of pillaged land. Gems, diamonds, rainbows covered the earth where people gathered. Remember, everyone prospered. They gathered their gemstones well and shared opulence. Come back to the land. Gather your jewels of joy wherever you are. Disintegrate fear. Segregate the weeping noise. Annihilate the hate. Cherish the globe too. The gathering of gemstones resides within you. You are a treasure waiting to bless this sweet earth. She birthed Africa. Wherever you are, know that you are a diamond. Acknowledge the truth. And the third one is called The Blessing of Spring. These are a combination of haikus. It's just two. It's very short. The Blessing of Spring. The season of love often brings the winds of change. Hope instigates peace. No terror nearby or anywhere I can see. The earth is healing. Joy is all around. People are eating good food, good love, kindness, all around, just for a moment. Those are the three for now. Maybe if we have time, I'll read something from a book. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. I the first one kind of reminded me of a roll call in a way, as you mentioned the names, and let alone, of course, the Central Park Five.
The Central Park Five. I was a teenager then. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to get into too much detail because as the clock flies, I just want to kind of, because at the same time, the second one, what stood out was, when you said annihilate hate, those beautiful words, yet poignant at the same time. I was just curious, and I just had a question before Eartha starts. How do you become inspired? Can you tell us a little bit about your writing process?
Well, I like to watch too much TV. That's the problem. That's real quick. I retired a couple of years ago, and it's like my morning starts with TV, my night ends with TV. But while I'm watching, I'm not really watching it.
Does the TV inspire you, or
me out? Some of the stories inspire me, but mostly sometimes it's music. It has to be something that grabs me, that inspires me. But I just had all of this stuff in me that I had to get out after I was teaching.
I see.
And it was every writer says, if you don't write, you just won't be good for anyone else. And it's almost like breathing. You have to do it. It's like, I got to do this no matter what. I'll do it for free even, but I got to do it because this is what I love, and this is what I've always loved. From like age 13, when my English teacher told me that my story was wonderful and it was excellent, I said, oh, no, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And ever since then, I've been writing.
It's just part of the creative process for you then to write. And are you writing for someone, or are you writing for yourself?
Oh, I never write for anyone but myself. I write for myself, and sometimes, I will write thinking that maybe this piece of writing could lift someone up. I usually try to write with everything that I try to write. I try to write with a good ending, with a positive ending, even though the murder mysteries and the suspense always end with something good is about to happen or something good will happen. It seems like I want to write and be entertaining, but I also want to write from a literary perspective. And what inspires me or motivates me or encourages me most of the time is life, what is all around me. I try to write I do historical writing sometimes. Most of the time there's going to be a little history in the book that I present. But at the same time, I like to write about what's going on now. So, of course, like every writer right now is like, we got to put a little bit of the coronavirus in here, because that'll be, for many writers, I'm sure that will be the backdrop for the next novel. Because it's just hard to ignore,
Well, and Judy, you have a book coming out, I think you said in the beginning, in the fall. Will that...
Yeah, that's the poetry
book. Is that just
yes.
Is that a coincidence with the virus, or they're tied together?
No, I started writing this let me start over. I started writing these poems about a year or two ago, and I had some leftover poetry that I had been keeping for years. I won't go back to how many years, but for years I started off writing poetry before I started writing a novel, but I didn't show it to anyone because I didn't think it was that good. So I said, I have all these poems, and I can't. The last murder mystery that I wrote, I just can't. I don't want to write about murder anymore right now. So I said, let me see if I can get together these poems and write something positive, and they're pretty positive, most of them. They're about the human experience, particularly pertaining to African American people and people of color. And then that was, I started typing it in the summer of last year, and I started, putting it together. And then by January, here comes this virus, and I'm like, what? So it's sort of like it's right now in the editing process. So, hopefully when the editing is finished, I could go and do the typesetting and get the typesetting going and the publishing part going. Hopefully over the summer, since no one can go anywhere.
Certainly so. Yeah. Thank you, Judy, for sharing that with us as part of our collaboration with the Harlem Writers Guild and Harlem World Magazine at-home reading series. And this is the first of the series. All this week we'll be doing it as we do it today. And just want to have our listeners know that they're listening to the Harlem World Magazine and Harlem Writers Guild at-home reading series. And you're listening to the Danny Tisdale Show. I'm Danny Tisdale on Harlem World Radio. And Harlem World Magazine is independently owned company. So please, as part of our support for the arts and for the Harlem Writers Guild, do support our work, and we'll support you. And next,
yes, thank you very much.
have,
thank you very much, Danny.
Oh, and thank you, Judy. Certainly so, and certainly good luck with your upcoming book. And at the end of the show, we're going to get your URL along with Eartha, but without further delay, we want to invite Eartha to the mic, I guess you could say. And Eartha Watts-Hicks. Hello, Eartha. How are you?
I'm good, Danny. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting us. This is a pleasure. Yeah.
Thank
hello,
you, and it's all yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Eartha Watts-Hicks. I'm a member of the Harlem Writers Guild and one of the contributing writers for Harlem World Magazine. Today I'm going to read from Graffiti Mural, which is my collection of poetry, short stories, and personal essays. And I'm going to start off with one of my favorite stories in a piece, which is a personal essay. It's called Miracle on 42nd Street. And this is something that actually happened a few years back while riding the number 2 train. And I'll start from the beginning. I had just left the hair salon at around 11:15 p.m. Karen, my best friend and owner of Eternal Beauty, occasionally gave me a lift to the Gun Hill Road train station on her way home. I was hoping to be able to catch the M11 express bus down into Lower Manhattan. That would have left me closer to home, and with minimal traffic, it would have been a quick 45-minute trip. Unfortunately, I missed my bus by about 10 minutes. Instead of waiting the half hour for another, I walked my beautified self across the street to catch the Flatbush-bound number 2 train down to 34th Street. That ride should have taken little more than an hour. But on this particular evening, the wait for that train was excruciatingly long. When the train did arrive, the subway car was half filled with young adults looking like they were on their way to hang out on a Friday night. Girls all had their hair and nails freshly done, guys with fresh haircuts dressed in their best casual clothing. Everyone spread themselves out evenly in the car, allowing ample room and space, assuring that they didn't invade anyone's personal space. The train itself did the usual squealing and jerking, but crawled to 149th Street Grand Concourse. We pulled into 125th Street, and the man I assumed to be homeless entered and walked through, making an obnoxious pitch for passengers to fill his coffee cup with paper money. As he blew by me, I didn't notice any odor, but would have assumed he had a foul odor by the looks of him. One thing I did know was that he was not satisfied with the fact that not a single coin donation dropped into his cup, so he planted himself smack in the middle of the subway car instead of proceeding and began to holler his random thoughts. I'm from Maryland. I've never been to a rodeo, and I like sandwiches with a lot of meat. New Yorkers can ignore anything. Despite his odd statements, no one so much as glanced in his direction. Those random assertions of his soon covered everything from fragments of his life to Bible verses. Competing with Beats and other stereo earbuds half the younger passengers were wearing urged him to increase the volume on his storytelling, and he carried on, spreading his message with spit flying from his mouth. At 96th Street, an Asian gentleman rushed in. He sat, looked across from him at the screaming man in the dingy cargo pants, up and walked to the other end of the subway car. The train pulled into 72nd Street, a station that now had a crowded platform. Passengers piled in quickly, filling all the empty seats. Hands searched for space on the poles. The screamer went right back at it. Maryland makes the best steaks, and this ain't Maryland. The tourist that had just sat next to the screamer was the tall, beautiful, bright-skinned black woman with big, bushy hair. Her big, beautiful smile reminded me of my daughter. Young, she must have been in her early 20s. Her voice barreled with a pleasant accent when she screamed back, "Of course this is Maryland. I've been to Maryland." Now, of this trainload of passengers, those who had purposely been avoiding eye contact with this man were now engaged to see how he was going to react to her. I can only assume that, like myself, they were quietly deciding how involved they'd get. The screamer's response was to ask, "Well, where are you from?" "I'm from California." At that, he said, "California's a beautiful place." And she screamed back, "I know, that's why I live there." He cleared his throat and lowered his tone. "I also like Virginia. I've actually been all around the world." "I've only been as far as the West Coast to East Coast, and I've been down to the Caribbean twice, but I do like to travel." He said, "I like to travel too." Now he screamed in excitement, but his voice turned somber when he added, "I just haven't been able to travel for a while." At that, the tourist said, "Don't worry, you'll get to travel again soon." Now, the rest of us who had been there before, during, and after his entry into the car, we're all quietly laughing to ourselves. But I noticed the subway car had stopped somewhere between 72nd and 42nd Street, and there was an announcement. "Due to a sick passenger, someone has pulled the emergency brake. We are stalled here until help arrives." We were stuck between two stations for roughly 45 minutes, confined to this one subway car, but we were actively eavesdropping on what had completely settled into pleasant camaraderie between this man and this young tourist. It was sheer beauty to witness this man's return to humanity. Noticing how straight his posture became as he sat, his crossed legs, and how he was so engrossed in their conversation that his smile became as big as hers. And by the time the train finally creeped into Times Square Station, my cell phone rang, read 1:30 a.m. I saw no EMS workers in the station, but did see about 30 police officers. The doors of the subway car opened up, and the homeless gentleman and the tourist stepped out through the foremost doors and smiled at each other. Just shy of giving him a hug, she said, "You have a great evening, and be careful out here." He replied, "You too, and stay sweet, dear lady." They walked off in different directions. Several police officers rushed in past them, looked up and down the subway car before exiting and boarding the next car over. Since someone had pulled the emergency brake, it seemed that they were now searching the whole train car, one car at a time. The tourists had walked down the platform, and I watched the strange gentleman's cargo pass casually exiting up the stairs while these 30 or so police officers frantically searched in and about the subway car, the platform, and the whole platform for the car's missing passenger. Empty-handed, they converged in the middle of the subway platform, scratching their heads. I was puzzled myself, trying to figure out which passenger in our car pulled the emergency brake. That man, turns out, may have just been going through a tough break. All he really seemed to need was someone to talk to him. And that's the end of the story. Yeah.
Thank you, Eartha.
You're welcome.
You know, what amazes me, Eartha, is, you know, it sounds like we were in. I felt like I was in your eyeballs, because you seemed to be writing it as you were watching it. That at least is the feeling that it gave me. And is that typical of the way that you write? I know this was a poem as opposed to, you know, some of your literary work. But is that typical for your poetry?
Well, yeah. Actually, this was a personal essay, and this is kind of typical of even my fiction, because I'm very detailed, and I'm more connected to what I feel when I write, so it's very tactile. So yeah, you know, I have quite a few stories that have that same feel, even when it's fiction and not fiction, when it's, you know, and even some of my poetry. But yeah, that's sort of typical, because I want people to feel something when they read it.
when they read it. So I wanted, this is a question for both of you, Judy and you, Eartha. It feels performative, especially, yours, Eartha, because you use different voices. And Judy, is it meant to feel performative, or it just happens to feel performative?
I really wanted to just write to have people read it. I did not want to do performance poetry, but nowadays you really do have to entertain and perform. I'm getting better at it because I really don't. I'm like an old-fashioned writer. I think that I'm like an old-fashioned writer where you just write the book and you just send it out and people buy it. I don't want to go out and promote it. I don't want to do any marketing. I just want to just put it out there. But I have to learn to do the other stuff too. And
the other stuff.
Performance is a part of it.
Yeah, I think Judy doesn't give herself enough credit because she reads absolutely beautifully, and her voice and tone can kind of.
Thank you. I agree, Eartha.
It's like you're being wrapped in a blanket, and you could fall asleep listening to Judy's poetry. She just doesn't see it because she's reading it.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I don't see it. I think I used to put the kids to sleep when I would read to them in class.
No, you read beautifully, Judy. You just don't. You're so used to hearing yourself read and being inside your own head that you don't realize how much of a lovely experience it is. So your writing is beautiful. So
Same to you. Yes.
Thank you, Judy.
Okay, break it up, Judy. Eartha, there's a love fest going on here. Is that the same thing, Eartha, for you? That you're
now we gotta spend
I know, I'm just kidding around. I thought I'd bring a little light humor to the proceeding. So, Eartha, is that the same for you? It's not performative, but it happens to feel performative?
It is performative, and honestly, it's because I started reading at a very early age. So I was pretty much a proficient in reading from first grade on, and I was reading on like a third grade level. And we had a teacher, Sister Anne-Marie, who was a nun, who used to embody the characters of the stories when she would read. So when she was Little Red Riding Hood, she was Little Red Riding Hood, the grandmother and the wolf. So just experiencing her do that from first grade and second grade, I didn't realize that was something that I did every time in my own head every time I read a book. So when I wrote a book, I just did the same thing. And as you know, reading is part of the Harlem Writers Guild. We read every 2 weeks. For weeks and weeks, I would read my pieces, and in my own head, I'm reading in character. And everyone would say, well, I can't tell if it's on the page or if it's in your head or if it's your voice. So I started printing out pages so that they could follow.
So they almost work in any platform. We're at that minute 30-second moment, and there's going to be wannabe writers, authors who, they're at home during the COVID crisis, and it's not fair. But in about 30 seconds each, what suggestion would you have for someone who wants to, they're inspired by your work and they want to write? Sorry that you only have 30 seconds.
Okay, even if the truth gets you in trouble, write it.
Excellent.
Nice.
And I say write it and do not judge yourself if it does not come out perfectly. Just keep writing it imperfectly until you're able to fix it.
Right.
And that's the great advice, even though you did a great job of putting it in 15 seconds, which is even better. But, for me as an artist, it's the same process. Just like you said, you have to continue to do your work, to do your craft, and to I guess, carve it and shape it until it is what you have in your mind sight. And we're down to 20 seconds. Can you each give your contact information so that our listeners can stay in contact with you? And also, of course, URL for the Guild. I'm sorry, we have 5 seconds each.
The Guild is the HarlemWritersGuild.org, and I'm Blessed Brown, BLESSEDBROWN.com.
Thank you, Eartha.
And EarthaTone.com, Eartha Watts-Hicks on Amazon, and at Eartha Tone across social media.
Thank you, ladies, for being on the show, and I will talk to you soon. And thank you, listeners, for being with us here on the Harlem Writers Guild and the Harlem World Magazine At-Home Reading Series #1. Thank you.
Thank you,
Danny.
Stay safe and healthy.